Hi, everyone.
Hi guys.
Um,
Hello.
we're so delighted to be joined again with the wonderful Sarah McCartney here. And basically, we just wanted to give you a bit of a sort of an update and possibly not a final update, but a sort of nearing the end of the process of making the wonderful Waft. And so today is just to kind of keep you all in the loop about where we are, really.
It's also keeping us in the loop. We
Yes.
had a little bit of chat before we started recording this, and I said I haven't smelt the fragrance. About a week ago, I managed to eke out a tiny bit out of the last little drop out of the sample bottle, but that was it. And so we now have, or I have the strange experience of making a video without smelling the fragrance we're talking about, which is a bit sad.
Yeah.
Soon that will be rectified.
But so you've seen in our previous, the last video, we had 8 samples which we were working through, and then we kind of decided, or we talked to Sarah about the things we liked, and we suggested whether we could combine elements of several of them, and then Sarah produced for us numbers 9 and 10. Which are based on the other samples she'd given us, and then eventually Joe and I chose 10, and that's the one we were going with. So what happens now, Sarah?
Well, as I have been saying, I had to then retire and do a lot of maths because I'd managed to make big companies do all this on automatic. They've got their spreadsheets programmed in, and everything just goes and rattles out and goes, "There's your formula." And what I was doing was working here. I made it complicated for myself because I wasn't working at 100% strength. I was working at some things which were diluted at 1%, some at 3, some at 2, some at 5, 10, 15. So, and I made...
Can we...
Yeah.
So, can you explain that, like why that was the case? And
Yes, sorry. Why would I do that? Some materials dominate very easily. And if I'm working in smallish quantities, as I am at home on the perfumer's florgan, which I've been attempting to tidy it today. Do you want to see? Or
Yes, please.
Well, so at work, the studio, I've got all the kit. Here, what I have on the floor in my perfumer's florgan is a lot of materials. That's a yoga thing. A lot of materials, and these are already diluted in perfumer's alcohol. So they're sometimes called extrait or extracts. It doesn't mean that they are at full strength, but they are. They're ready to experiment with. So you don't. You can be a little bit more nuanced. If you're working at something that's really intense, you don't want to put suddenly a gram of something in a small bottle. So this is the kind of thing that I was doing when I first started. And I would dilute some things to say your favorite aldehyde. I was using aldehyde C10. That's at 1%. Because if I put a lot of that in something, suddenly all you get is waxy. And it needs to be controlled. Whereas something like, say, Timber Silk or Isoe Super, I use that at 15%. So I'm not filling up a massive bottle with the amount that I need. So I can, if I have 1 gram of the aldehyde and 1 gram of the Isoe Super, I've already got 15 times more Isoe Super than the aldehyde.
Yeah, okay.
And even then, I'd want to use more of the Isoe Super. So what I've done is something like the Rose I'm using. The Rose Absolute would be at 5% because that's, I'm trying to get, say, equal volumes. If we were talking about an orchestra, it's like having 1 piccolo and 15 violas.
Yeah.
God, no.
The aldehyde would be your piccolo and your violas would be your Timber Silk.
Yeah.
Well, not just them. Obviously, we've got other things in there as well. A rose might be a French horn.
Yeah. It was just the mention of that many violas in one room. I got terrified.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I love the viola. I love the viola.
Yeah, fair enough. But yes, I wasn't suggesting you compose something just with that. But Yeah, if you imagine on a musical theme, then that some of them just have a lot more volume.
Mhm.
So I dilute them to different concentrations to even them out when I'm working with them.
Okay.
But that means then I have to kind of track back and work out how much of each one is in every accord. That's not too complicated. If I were just making one thing.
But you said you wouldn't normally do work like this.
Quite often, I go when I know exactly what I want. I know where I want to finish, and I'm taking it to somewhere that I have imagined in my head, so I know where I'm going. I will work with materials at 100% strength, unless I would probably work with the aldehydes at a dilution of 10 or 1%, because they'll still take over even if I'm working at 100% strength with other things. So Meet Me on the Corner, for example, I just set out and went for it because I'd been planning it for 5 years in my head. So I knew what I wanted it to smell like. So I just worked ground up. I just made, I only did one actual liquid version of it. I tweaked slightly and decided
it worked.
No, I knew that's where I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm making it for somebody else, and I have to, we're going forwards and backwards, and this is rather more, let's say, adventurous. Plus, I'm working at home, and I couldn't bring 5 kilos of Styrax home with me, and my Styrax is in a 5 kilo vat. So
surely that's a lockdown priority, isn't it?
Wine.
Well, that's
Styrax.
I go back there to get more, but so I had to bring much smaller quantities with me. So I diluted them ready rather than bringing also 25 kilos of alcohol. So I've been working here at much smaller amounts, with much smaller amounts in dilution. So that I just made my job a little bit more complicated, but that's my own fault. But then I had to just kind of recalculate things back again. But if that sounds a little bit complicated, then what I did was I had those accords in different quantities in each of our variations.
Yes.
So then I had to work out what strength each chord was at in alcohol by the time I'd finished working it out. So, I mean, for example, the incense accord turns out to be at 9.8%. The ultimate amber was 9.1. The greenery was 9. The dirty sweet was 8.6. And the woods were 8.7. So they're all about 9% strength. But if I wanted to reproduce it exactly, I had to then recalculate everything, find out exactly how much of everything is in every single accord that I did. And so it's just been...
It's an amazing process, actually, isn't it? People have no idea, do they? At home, ourselves included, we have no idea of the real complexity of doing this.
No,
some know-how behind it.
Well, you're right. I mean, of course, there's creativity in it. Of course, there is, and you need your inspiration, and you need knowledge of materials. But when it actually comes to working out what you've done and scaling it up so you can produce 10 liters of it, whatever we're going to do, then you really can't do it without somebody who knows the maths. The big companies, they have programs, they just dial it in. And actually, Harry Sherwood, who works with us when he's around, he's got his own Excel spreadsheet. But I actually like to do it by hand to double check that I haven't just accidentally entered the wrong number somewhere, because then I've got a kind of, double entry bookkeeping kind of a way of doing it, so that if I suppose some of the best mistakes, Chanel number 5 was made with a mistake over the aldehydes, but at least they could track back where they'd made the mistake because they were doing all their maths by hand.
Yeah.
And it's kind of beautiful to do it the traditional way, isn't it? And to kind of keep in touch with where you start, I think.
Yeah, and it's handy. You know, I do work in columns. I'm a columns kind of a person from.
But it must feel more if you're crunching the numbers yourself. It must feel more like you're inside it. Do you know what I mean? Like you understand, okay, so that's actually now become 2.5 and it's double what that was. So that kind of, rather than just seeing the numbers at the end and not understanding the process.
Well, I enjoy it, fortunately. And I mean, Christoph Lodemiel said recently that he's just saying how much of perfume is maths. And if you don't have the maths, he said it's much more important than a chemistry. People have got their chemistry degrees and gone on to gone straight into perfumery. He said we're missing artists, we're missing bringing in musicians and painters and photographers, and a lot of indie perfumers have come from other arts inwards.
Yeah.
Whereas the tradition at the moment is get your chemistry degree and then you might be allowed to study perfume. Christoph reckons that other arts and maths are actually something that the industry is needing because they're automating it so much.
Well, it's interesting. Someone like Antonio Gardone was an architect, wasn't he? And I think Dmitry Bortnikov was an architect as well. So I guess that's a good combination of art and maths as well.
Mm-hmm.
If not
good
chemistry.
point. And music.
Yeah. Are there any musicians turned perfumers?
What, sorry?
Are there? I mean, I'm just trying to. Are there any kind of like professional musicians turned perfumers?
Do you count me?
Well,
I was semi-professional.
Yeah, okay.
I played Newcastle City Hall.
Oh,
it's
there
big.
we go. Yeah, we'll allow that. So, can we?
I don't know.
Just
yes. Yeah. Doesn't John Beeble do music? Paul Schutz. Paul Schutz.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't know.
Just take
Tears of Eros guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a slight step back from the maths at the moment. We'll go back to maths, I'm sure. But so where we've ended up, we've got the green accord from the garden, the courtyard garden in the church.
Beautiful.
Of course, we've got incense.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the kind of woodiness of the kind of like the kind of pews, and then there's the kind of the other things which we liked. And kind of relating to the kind of the organ console where we film our videos. So the things like there's kind of ambriness, there's a bit of oudiness, there's a bit of funk.
Yes, so we have those, and in fact, all of those, the 5 accords that I made to sum up the place, and you, have all ended up going in because. Variation number 1 had 4 of them, and variation number 2 had 4 of them. But put them together, and now we've got all of them in. Mm-hmm. So the incense accord was the one which that was the incense cupboard around the back.
Yeah.
So that has the rose, and I have to track back several pages to where I did all of those. Incense. Oh yeah, there's more pages of it. Today there's quite a lot. I do enjoy getting stuck into this, I mean,
well, you can tell when you smell the perfume as well.
Oh, good. I enjoyed
it's got personality. It's it really shows.
Well, I like to think it's a sort of balance, the 3-legged stool of all of us. So that's the rose and frankincense. I put osmanthus in there as well. So that was when we went round to the store cupboard and had opened it up and smelled all the boxes of incense. Yep. Then the ultimate amber one, that's the smell as you open the door first of all and go in. So that does include incense. So but it's more sort of labdanum and styraxy, that one. Mm-hmm. That was accord B. But I've put that's got oak moss in as well, because there is that old earthy feeling as you walk straight into the
Mustiness.
building. But yeah, that's that.
Which I love
The green-
immensely.
Good. Greenery. There's almost some things I don't want to say. There's one thing I'm not saying that I made the greenery, because there are some things that you can, I might have told you, and I think the last workshop that I did, I handed the rose around and somebody said, "Oh, it's cucumber." And everybody else is going, "Oh, yes, cucumber." I go, no, stop it, it's the rose. And it was too late, everybody had smelled cucumber.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with coconuts. If somebody says, if there's even a hint of a lactone, and somebody says, "Oh, it's coconut," everybody else goes, "Yeah, it is." Like, no.
Yeah.
And then it's too late. So
the thing is, like with Aventus, I mean, pineapple. I never really smell pineapple when I smell Aventus, but yeah, everyone says, "Oh, it's that smoky pineapple fragrance." Like, anyway,
Not really.
No, it's tricky. It's like the people who think that musk is deep and dark and heavy when it's fluffy bunnies. But because I ended up having to make an extra 3 mods of macaque for Victor Wong, for zoologist, when he was smelling a bunch of them, and I said, "Oh yeah, I put celery herb in," and that he goes, "I hate celery." And once I'd mentioned it, he couldn't unsmell it.
Yeah.
So I had to make another load. And it didn't really smell of celery at all, I don't think. But once I'd said it, it's like things you can't unsee.
I wonder this with things like, secretion magnifique as well. If we didn't read that list of notes, whether it would be quite so disgusting. I mean, I still don't think I like it, but the power of suggestion is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
As it should be, I guess. To sort of fire the imagination.
It is fascinating. Did you go to the Somerset House exhibition that Lizzie Osgood curated? Yeah. So, and Sécrétion Magnifique was on that white sheet, just on a bed.
Yeah.
And I smelled that, and I said to myself, "Oh, it's a marine floral." Moved on.
Yeah.
And then, but that's because after it dries down, it's a marine floral. It's, light floral with a bit of like a ozonic feel. But when you first smell it, it's a bit more. But I don't think people actually put it on and then leave it and just end up smelling like sort of a bit like issey miyake. So
But then isn't that part of the creating the magic and the even a kind of a sense of illusion that if you give a fragrance a name, you're automatically expecting something, and that that colors your experience of it. The same way if you hear, I don't know, like a chord, in one situation it can feel completely different to a different context, and that's because the composer wants you to feel something, wants you to react to it, even though it's just the same old chord you heard that in a different situation will make you sad, and this time it makes you happy. And in the same way that it's with, I guess something like Fragrantica can be difficult because, people say, well, they must be those 8 ingredients. They are the ingredients. But there's also, as Joe pointed out, by saying it's got this, and this is what you're going to smell, by making up a notes list, you are planting a story in someone's head. So will you be making a notes list for this? Will you be saying, here are the 10 notes you will...
It's tricky. It is tricky because I can, but I'd almost rather you told me what you can smell because, I've said it before, I'll say it a million times. Materials are input, notes are output. In terms of a notes pyramid, if you're making perfume, then top notes, mid notes, and base notes are entirely dependent on how long it lasts. That's all. But if you are describing a perfume for PR and for the Fragranticas of this world, people who want, I am sent spreadsheets by some retailers like 3 from the top, 3 from the middle, 3 from the bottom. Boom, you've got to do that. And so I squeeze this square peg into the round hole, or into a triangular hole in this if I have to. And so I'll probably try to list the things, but it depends. Like you say, if
because the list you sent us a materials list, which is vast and baffling and unhelpful. Really.
And that's one of the problems. Which is why notes lists exist, because they're mostly so that salespeople can have a conversation with the people opposite them.
Yeah.
Somebody says, "What does that one smell of?" Well, it smells of Artemisia. They might never have smelled Artemisia, but there's a talking point. And I mention Artemisia because that's in the Green Accord, which is where we took off from this particular place.
Yeah.
I have put wormwood in there, put Artemisia in there, because it gives an aldehydic effect. It gives a very green aldehydic effect, Artemisia. So I used it because I know you wanted aldehyde, so that's what I went for. And I put magnolia leaf in there, and very few people will have smelt magnolia leaf essential oil, but if one were to write it, it'd sound lovely, wouldn't it? But here's what you're going to do. Go to find a magnolia tree, rip it in half and see what it smells like. It smells like a very light rosewood, I'd say, but I might... It's tricky. So I've got the cut grass smell. This is 3-hexanol. A little bit of basil and your aldehyde C10. I say yours because I own it. Like the thing you
I made you put it in it.
Yeah. So that's the greenery that's in there. And then the dirty sweet accord, which that's more like what the keyboard smells like now. After accumulating all the things. Now that is...
And now dust.
I've
got to go back and play that thing at some point, so make sure it still works.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Check no one's there. So that one... Yeah, what have I got here? Ambrox. Here's my dirty sweet calculations. Ambrox. Buchu, that's the very blackcurrant. It's the blackcurrant wine gums.
Oh, yeah.
Benzoin, so that's kind of more balsamic vanilla kind of a smell. Tobacco, black pepper, tonka, and coumarin. So I used real tonka beans plus boosted a bit with coumarin because the tonkas... Well, coumarin's about £80 a kilo and tonka's about £8,000. So,
really?
Yeah. So when people list tonka, they generally just use coumarin, but we're going to do both. Tiny bit of actual indole, straight indole. So dirtiness. And where's the... Yep, that's sort of it. I'm called E. What's E? This is how hard it is because I lose track of my own notes. Oh, the woods. Okay. Virginian cedarwood, Karma wood, which is synthetic. I used small amount because it can get a bit sort of over blokey, if you see what I mean. Karma wood's used as a sort of shortcut to Reynolds Woods fragrances.
Yeah.
No, little bit gives richness. Overdo it. A little bit of white birch, so the smoky smell, which you like. And sandalore, which is a sort of sandalwood replacement, which people recognise as sandalwood more often than they recognise sandalwood.
Okay.
So,
really?
Yeah. What have I missed out? Ultimate Amber has isobutyl quinoline in, which is the leather smell. So because if we would write leather, we would not write isobutyl quinoline because there is no point. Plus, we have sneaked in the Dubai oud, the posh one.
Yes.
So is it actually from Dubai?
Yeah, I got given it by somebody who is a close friend of Sheikh Mohammed, who said this is the one that Sheikh Mohammed uses. Although he doesn't like oud very much, but that's his apparently his preference. So he gave me a bottle of it. So that's going in.
Wow.
All of that. That's why we can only make. Well, there's going to be one batch of the original because I can't actually afford to buy this. We can. I can use it because it was a gift, but I can't.
Yeah.
We don't have the money. That would probably be. Well, it'd be a lot of the budget. So that's going in. Nothing's too good for you, chaps.
Oh, thank you.
There is some hedione within the greenery to make it smell fresher. The civet tincture's going in, of course.
Awesome.
A little bit, but that is, some of the last bit of my ethically collected civet before it stopped being ethically collected. And then there is a little bit of that. It's called Oud 184007. The firma niche.
Romantically, the James Bond is.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like it. But that's a very fruity kind of an oud feeling. So that's sort of how it ended up. Yeah.
That's all there is. That's all there is. So,
that's all it is. And I was very happy it ended up at 42 materials. It's a list of 42 things.
Yes, this is it. So, I asked you this briefly before we started recording. Did we end up where you expected us to? And are you happy or disappointed with where we ended up?
Did I have an expectation of where we were going? I am very happy because, without trying to sound, I'm happy because you're happy. No, but you chaps, this was always going to be, if I could make something that you really liked, that was going to be an achievement, because you know what you love, and I have my style, and you like some of the things that I do, and some of the things that you like I do. I wasn't expecting. You like things which completely surprise me sometimes. So I would never have made this by myself. And I always love it when that happens, because to have some creative directors who say, I want something that smells of this, this, this. But it wasn't really that straight. It was because you invited me to make what I thought would suit the place, but I wanted to make something I thought that you'd feel suited to the place. So, the balance of that. And when I put 1 and 2 together, and I was just thinking, whoa, and I probably wouldn't have done that. So, yeah.
It's the real discovery, isn't it? That you come at it with a load of ideas. We then take them and say, okay, we love that. What about this and that together? And before you know it, you've gone down a rabbit hole, haven't you? You've unlocked another potential.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I knew as soon as you said, "What about aldehydes?" and I was thinking, I don't want to put out there. I sort of like being pushed into something that I wouldn't have done. Excuse me, but in fact, so there will be two versions. I don't think I've.
Oh yes,
yeah. The two.
That's a good point, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I decided early on that we needed to do the absolute, total, full-on, ultimate waft. But there's also the thing is, can we make it maybe
a sport
little
version,
more daytime wearable? Yeah,
a sport flanker.
Le Waft sport. Yeah, the sport. So actually, I think what I've done is I've just changed the proportions a little of, and that's hence a few more calculations, but I have nudged up the greenery and up the hedione for the or the parfum version, and a bit more of the incense and ultimate amber for the parfum version. So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So they will, in effect, be the same fragrance, but not quite.
Good, excellent, marvelous. So, when can we smell it? When can we smell
You
it?
can smell it. So we're delivering, the plan is to deliver sort of, I think I said August, September. That was before the world fell apart, but we're still definitely on for September. You can smell it the moment it is diluted and filtered, but you have to bear in mind that that will be too young, really. So you can smell it in about a month.
Okay, well, that's not bad. Yeah.
But but then
it needs time to just sit there and to macerate, doesn't it? And to do its alchemy. Well, more alchemy.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, it needs to mature. Well, okay. Truth. First of all, I actually need to mix the stuff because with only having 2 of us in the studio at the moment, the compounding has got left behind. Because what comes first is sell enough stuff to stay in business. And what comes second is get all the workshops so they can be run online. So I've spent the last fortnight in between. I've compounded a few things, like really urgent stuff, and bottled a lot of stuff and packed a lot of parcels and shipped them around the world. And then compounding. So this is about to happen this week. And then, so I put that together. That I would like to give it a month. So I'd like to give it till just in the middle of July. So that's when it matures, because there's a lot of molecules in there. If it were 42 materials and they were all synthetic, I'd still want to give it a fortnight. 42 materials, of which more than half are naturals. That's thousands of different things in there. It needs time. And then once it's diluted, it's just like the longer it mills together, the smoother it gets. It's if I'm going to be musical, I'd liken it to rehearsals. So, and it at the end of that time, then I would dilute it. I like to leave the sediment in it before I filter it out. This is not the way the big companies do it. Their fragrance concentrate will always be clear. It'll be filtered before they put alcohol in it. But the way us indies do it, I like to allow all the bits in the naturals to be in the mix and then filter them out at the last moment.
Okay.
So I tend
to... It sits there like stewing in its own juices, and then with all its bits.
Yeah.
Is that the equivalent of deglazing the pan after a roast, and you've got all the sort of the good bits left behind?
Oh.
If you're making a jus.
Yes. I guess that would be a good analogy. Or if you have really decent wine compared with, you've got your standard blended wine, your $2.99 go to party when you're 18 sort of wine, that never has any sediment in the bottom. I know, but we were all students once. But
I'm a student.
So that's that you'll never get any sediment in the bottom of a bottle of Matthias Rosé. Whereas if you've got an expensive red, there'll be bits in.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been filtered.
Yeah.
So you can't actually leave the bits in the perfume. They do have to be filtered out before it goes into the bottle. But I tend to leave that till the last moment. So what I would have to do with yours, though, is either leave the bits in and send you it, or filter it first and then leave it to macerate. But then I'll top you up later with the final version. They'll be pretty similar.
I feel that I feel that our patience will be rewarded. So maybe we should be patient.
Oh,
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe I should, if I've got any bits left, I can mock you up a little bit more. I say, like, I'll do you the prototype.
Keep us going.
Yeah.
This does sound like a methadone deal.
Yeah.
Just enough to keep us on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, it's like I'll send you a free one. Sometimes I do think that giving samples to people is just like, the dealer at the school gates. Yeah.
So can we then talk about? I mean, say if you don't want to talk about this now, but so we've we started with this crowdfunded on Indiegogo, where everybody has pre-purchased, they kind of gambled to pre-buy, having not smelt it. So we have spoken about this briefly, but is there going to be a stage when other people who didn't snap one up initially will be able to buy it?
Well, actually, they still can, and they still are, because when the thing happened, and I had to rethink everything that we did. I mean, we set it to go for, I think, 6 weeks, so that people can have time to think about it and decide whether they wanted to be in small or in larger. And then normally I would then have a cut-off date then and decide, and then crack on with making it, and it would be finished. No one could contribute anymore. But because I knew that we still had some processes to go through before and allowed longer time, I ticked the box because we achieved our target. I ticked the box to allow people to continue to contribute in advance. So still, everybody can get it's about 50% off the final price to begin with that first batch, because one first batch is much more cost effective for me to produce than little bits going on into the future. So people can still join in if they want to. At the point at which it is out there ready for people to smell, that I think is fair to cut off then, and then it goes to full price. Because but to reward the people who have actually shelled out on the trust that you and I will produce something that will make them happy and feel that they've, it's money well spent. They've gambled. So they deserve that reward. So that's the point at which we have the cutoff, because then I have to manufacture that much, so it's stopped. I'll manufacture a little bit more. And then, so after that, then the people who want to buy that then will have to pay the next price up. We've sold out completely of the smaller bottles because I allocated a certain number. They've all gone. So, but there are still, all the 15 mils have been spoken for, which is great. There are still some. I know, I'm kind of pleased. So we just kept going. It just kept getting bigger. And actually every time you make a film, people think, oh, I've been meaning to do that, and we get a few little more extras coming in. So that's great, because I've now bought all the bottles, bought all the pumps, bought the new boxes. So I've got pretty much everything, except I need to buy some more Ambrox, which is a bit expensive, but that's okay, because the next, I'll get a bit of funding next month from the next batch, so that can pay for the Ambrox, so we're ready to go. And
great.
That's
and then we have it.
It's such an exciting process.
And then it's done. It's out there.
Wow.
I mean, I think that's all. That's answered lots of questions for me. Certainly, I don't feel we've got anything else to ask. Apart from, you've told us when we can smell it. That's the next step.
Well,
for us. I mean, you've got lots of work to do.
You've got all the hard work, and we just have to smell it with delight. I've still got it on my hand here now. My last drops, and I love it. I've
got like exactly that much. That's it. I don't know anything else that smells like this, but I feel it might smell similar to other things, but it's not the kind of thing I make, so it's not the kind of thing I'm normally buying. Is it? My only concern is that somebody will say at some point, oh, it smells like something that I've never heard of. But I don't know. Do you think it is it?
No.
But I think even if that were the case, then that's life of all art, isn't it? One piece may have something in it that reminds you of something else, but it's just because everything is intrinsically linked somehow. Yeah. And I have to say, I've never smelled anything really like this. I think it's really unique, actually.
Good.
Possibly,
I mean, you did say. Yeah.
Possibly because we've been on the inside and we've been, talking about materials and ideas. It's difficult to look outside it. But I think often I think it's quite a natural reaction to smell something and go, oh yeah. I mean, either you have an olfactory kind of relation which isn't perfume, like, oh, I remember when it was really hot and it started to rain and I was drinking tequila, or whatever it would be, or the other one, it goes, oh, well, that reminds me of Aventus or whatever. It's just
I'm not sure that it actually smells like the church, but then that's not really what we wanted. We wanted it to smell of the experience of being up in the loft, really.
I'm quite pleased.
It transports you.
I think it's not as literal an olfactory experience as I perhaps expected it to be when we started.
Yeah.
And I think when we were going through some of the numbers, I thought, oh, this tells quite a clear story. And I can really see people in go, oh, yes, church, oh, yes, but I prefer this one. So I think, especially when, we both said when we were down to 9 and 10, I kind of felt that 9 was maybe a bit nice, like prettier, if that's, I don't know, difficult, but I just had a bit more of an immediate emotional response to 10, and I was like, this is more interesting. Maybe it's not nicer, but it's more interesting, and so I'm just going to go with that, whether that's right or wrong. Like, and we kind of talked about it, and we both said, I'm having a reaction, not an allergic reaction, but I'm having, I'm having more of a kind of an emotional.
I've come over a bit funny, but it does, and I think that's the point, isn't it? That it speaks to you, and then if you're so attached to your initial brief that you ignore your natural reactions to things, that's not a healthy approach to any kind of art, is it? You've got to be alive in the moment to what you're doing and what you're smelling and hearing.
Yeah, I guess when we got down to number 9 and number 10, I think I probably thought you would go with 9, but I'm glad you went with 10 because that was just a bit more. Oh, just a minute.
Yeah. So there we are.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's it.
Oh yes, and except to say that I would like to recommend to you. I'm not champagne drinking this evening. I am drinking Bon Accord's salted pink grapefruit soda.
I really like the sound of that.
Nice.
I know. I'm on their rhubarb and their they make a lovely cloudy lemonade, and I met these chaps at a gin festival in Edinburgh, and if you know the little things you look at, I think, oh, I need something special because I'm locked down, and I went and hunted them out, and they did a salted pink grapefruit soda. I love pink grapefruit, so I've just got to have this. So I will say to you, cheers.
Cheers.
I know, salted.
I've just finished my wine actually, but fair enough.
But I do, perfumers, I think, love eating and drinking really weird stuff. So I'm going to say, yeah.
Right.
I had a really nice rose lemonade a few weeks ago. That it was before lockdown actually. I got it up in Whole Foods just one day for lunch. I thought, I'm bored of water or 7-Up or whatever it was, and it was really good. It was just a completely different taste for the palate that I hadn't really bothered with before. Well,
I tell you what, I've never had salted pink grapefruit before.
No.
Yeah. I just ordered a load of berry chocolate flavored salted licorice as well. So
Amazing.
Very nice.
anyway, yeah, things to keep perfumers occupied while jotting at home. So cool.
Well, I think
Right then.
that's it. I think next time you hear us talk about this, we will be holding the finished product.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
It's so exciting.
until
I'll
next
get on with
time,
it.
happy sniffing.
Bye.
Bye.